You're listening to the Para is My Normal podcast. We are a bit science, a bit woo, and all curious about that which defies explanation because sometimes normal just isn't.
Hello, everyone. I'm your host tonight, Jennifer Lynn. And tonight we have a very special podcast. I'm so excited about this one. We have with us Barrie Reader, who is the co-founder of Dimension Devices and developer of my favorite thing, the Chattergeist. Welcome, Barrie.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So one thing we did when we announced that we were launching the pod, we went out and made some social media posts about, hey, we want to know what people are interested in. Tell us about what you're curious on. And a lot of people said the Chattergeist. We use it so much. They wanted us to dive deep into the Chattergeist. And I figured, I can only do so much justice on my own. Why not bring the person who can speak the best to the device on and kind of walk us through what it is? More importantly, how did it come to be? And overall, where do you see the future of tech going? And more specifically, the future of Dimension Devices and Chattergeist?
Yeah,
So
definitely. And I'm more than happy to share anything and anything pretty much.
perfect. So I'm very curious, how did this all come to be? How did you get involved in the paranormal and specifically into something like an ITC device?
I've always had an interest in the paranormal, I would say, as far back as like 6 or 7 years old. And I don't really know where it stemmed from, but I remember being in like a primary school, which is sort of between the ages of like 5 and 11, give or take. I found some paranormal books, and in those paranormal books were pictures of ghosts and illustrations of aliens. And there were some stories about a Captain Mansell with the Foo Fighters during World War II, and then that captured my imagination. And then there were some stories about aliens in windows and spooky ghosts in all sorts of places. And I think that's probably where this all stemmed from initially. But moving forward, I kind of drifted away for it. I watched the entirety of the X-Files, and then I kind of drifted away and got more into tech. Yeah, everyone loves the X-Files,
Fair.
right?
Oh, that is like canon in life.
Yeah, I think it's canon for anyone who's into anything esoteric. The X-Files is definitely up there.
Absolutely.
But and then I kind of got more into tech side of things, and I started to do more sort of like web development, really interested in the internet. It's like the birth of the internet, so I started doing that. Did that for almost 25 years, web development for some massive companies, Jeep and Nikon, Chrysler, or Nikon, I think Americans call it, right? So did that for 25 years. It got to the point where the business, the industry was not what it was, and they kind of sucked all the creativity out of it. And at that time, I bumped into someone online called Travis Wisotsky, who's also a paranormal investigator, and he's great. If anyone listening doesn't know him, go check him out. He's on all the socials. He's brilliant. No embellishment, just a guy doing paranormal investigation, and I love that. But he introduced me to what I'd never heard of, which is the Ovulus. And it kind of blew me away a little bit in several ways. One was the fact that I'd never seen a digital ghost hunting device before. I was like, oh, that's something that's interesting to me.
Right? Like, what is this?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it was a whole new frontier because to me, ghost hunting devices were like Ouija boards and, that sort of thing. They introduced me to cat balls and things like that. But the actual Ovulus itself, we looked it up, and it was going for, I think it was like 400 and something pounds at the time, which is probably about $600, I think, give or take. It just blew me away that something so archaic could go for so much. And I said to Travis, that is daylight robbery. And I've said it in every podcast since, it is daylight robbery. For anyone listening, that is daylight robbery. Yeah, so, and I said to him at that point, I'm sure I could produce something cheaper. We get that actually out on the market and just see how it does. And thus Chattergeist was born. And then 2 years later, I think it was, or a year and a half later, just over a year and a half later, I had a working prototype. And then that came to fruition after that. And that's kind of brought me up to date. I mean, I did a bit of investigating as well by myself before all that, and then obviously field testing the Chattergeist. But yeah, basically it was Travis's fault that I'm back in the paranormal realm.
Blame Travis.
Yeah, well, it was great because at that point I wasn't too sure what to do with my career. I really wasn't enjoying it. And I thought, sod it, I'm just going to bite the bullet and just give it up. And after 25 years, that's a hard thing to do. And it was really, really a tough time. But being able to get to this point now where I'm not quite making a living off of it, But I'm getting to the point, and Dimension Devices is getting to the point where orders are coming in, and it's evolving, as no doubt you've seen on social media, and we can go into some of that as well. There's some amazing stuff
Is
coming out.
blown by the way at the pace of evolution.
Yeah,
All of
so
a sudden, it's like a huge. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa! Every day, a new post on something.
yeah, it is pretty crazy at the moment, and it for a while it wasn't like that. So I think the first year or so, there was a lot of updates, and everything was software based. So it was new operating modes being added, and tweaks and performance updates and blah blah. But the bottleneck was the wrist straps. For ages, people have wanted these wrist straps. So this is the wrist pack for those who are watching, and it is just a little wrist pack. And this thing was the hardest thing in the world I've ever had to create in my life.
Oh,
The tolerances on the machining and getting the actual quality right and to fit with the actual board was a real struggle. So everything was kind of waiting behind this. And now this is done, everything's gone forward at like hell to leather. It's been absolutely crazy.
say I have mine right here as well.
Hey, there we go.
There we
Wrist pack
go.
buddies.
And that has been singularly a huge update that just, whoa. I mean, we wear it, we don't have a problem. Stop. But we had no problem wearing it with the battery pack and the cord. It was just once the wrist pack came out, I was like, I'm on it. I am on it.
I
And
love
it
it.
is
Love it.
honestly, it is so comfortable for the size and dimensions of it. You did a really good job making to where I wore it a couple times on investigation since we've gotten it. And I actually have forgot I was wearing it because it's so light. It isn't like it
I'm
looks
so
larger than
happy.
it feels. Like
Yeah.
it's super usable, very usable.
I'm so
Thumbs up.
happy to hear that. I mean, we haven't had much feedback about the wrist packs, curiously, because it was like it's been a strange one because we had obviously we released the Chattergeist and everyone was really excited about the Chattergeist. We had this huge like build up and release and everything was really cool. And then since then it's been nice and steady and people have been really into it. But the wrist packs, there's been huge hype for the wrist packs, and then when they come out, they just kind of sold pretty quickly. But we haven't had any feedback. We do have a version 2 of the wrist pack coming, which is exactly the same. You're not missing out. Except for inside, it's just going to have a couple of extra little slots so we can just fit compartments easier when we manufacture them.
Okay.
It's just
They
easier.
always love a manufacturing upgrade, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it helps us create them faster. They're more reliable. Yeah, all that juicy stuff.
Stuff that people are like, oh, manufacturing.
Yeah.
That's my life for
fun
years. I
stuff.
love it.
Well, I mean, you have to say all these paranormal people, they love a good manufacturing story.
Especially here. So before we dive into like how it works, because I think that I would rather focus more on what sets this apart. I have my own opinions on what sets this apart from the Obelisk, like the Echovox, the spirit boxes, any of the millions of Alice boxes. Just throw a stone, right? There's so many things out there nowadays, or even the phone apps. What really sets in your eyes and in your vision the Chattergeist apart from any of the other ITC gear out there?
When I first, to give you the long answer, and it won't be too long, I promise.
Long answer. I'm a talker.
Yeah, me and you both, oh dear. So yeah, the long answer being that when I first found out about the Ovilus, the two things that there's kind of three things that really stuck out to me. The price point was one of them, which we've touched upon. But one of the other things was it only does X, Y, and Z. Or Z, if you're American listeners, and that's fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. But in this day and age, things are faster, things are more technologically advanced, and they can do all sorts of weird and wonderful things. So I thought, why can't you update that? Why is that not an updatable thing? And it is possible to update an Ovilus. Software, they just don't do that for whatever reason.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's completely possible to actually tap in. At least the older version of Oviluses, I have not managed to look inside the Ovilus 5 because it's so expensive and hard to get hold of. But anyway, these things are possible, and that was one thing. And the other thing was extensibility. So yeah, basically the two things were basically extensibility and updatability. Those two words, and those two words, I think personally, are what sets Chattergeist apart from other ITC devices. And everything else aside, operating modes aside, and how it works or what you can plug into it to get it to work, all of that aside, I think just the fact that you can update it with dictionaries and or firmware updates, and you can plug things into it, just two things that I think just pretty cool for the paranormal world, because I mean, so many things, they do one thing and they cost a bomb, but why not cut that price and make it do many things? And it's a win-win for everybody, I think. I hope. Right? Right, guys?
Absolutely. Facts. Yes. I really, and that's something that I've been impressed in the 2 year that we've owned our Chattergeist. I think when we got it, it was 1.2 version
Oh,
operating
okay.
system.
Yeah.
So now you're releasing 1.5. I
Yeah.
will say, like, the updates are substantial. Like, when it first started, loved it, but then with the next one of my favorite things is the planchette mode with the
Yeah.
green and red, because of how you can use it in a way to, it's just different ways of being able to use it in a space. We can use it as a traditional ITC device, but for me, we use that and the planchette mode the most of everything, I would say.
It's funny because that was kind of the original mode that was going to come out in that version. I can't remember what version it was now. I want to say version 1.4, whichever version it was that came out in. The original mode wasn't actually a planchette mode at all. The idea we had was runestones, and that may still come in the future. And it's something we're still sort of contemplating and messing with, and different ways we can use it. But yeah, we were talking to someone who owns a Chattergeist, and they were like, "Oh, it'd be cool to actually do like a Ouija board, like a proper Ouija board." And I was like, "Well, we've already got the Ouija board mode, which does the letters." And he was like, "Oh, what about the planchette?" And I was like, "Oh." And that was it. And it just came out of nowhere. And within like 3 days, we had it working. It was absolutely crazy turnaround on that. So
Amazing.
yeah, and the runestone mode's still kind of there. It's half built. And I don't really know what to do with it, but that's something that no one really knows about yet.
Right?
Well,
Top secret.
now
You're
they do.
hearing it
Yeah.
here first, everyone.
Mum's the word.
Breaking news.
It's just in. Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
love
yeah,
it.
I think extensibility, updatability, and like you said, being able to add different function modes, like as an iterative process, is great. I mean, that's lovely. So your device is always changing, and then if you don't like the next update, it's optional as well, so you can keep your device the way it was. It's cool.
Absolutely. And I think that the ability to add the different libraries, the word banks, has been really cool, going to different places. Like, we just went to New Orleans. We investigate a lot of places that have rich cultural history. And I will say, this is what's really interesting. And I kind of wanted your take on what on earth happened. So the first probably 6 months of using the Chattergeist, we used to live in Michigan, and we worked at Eloise Asylum. So we
Okay.
were there literally every weekend.
Yeah.
So I had my Chattergeist on, and it is set to English. That is the default dictionary I have. And we were up on one of the floors, and it's big concrete asylum building, right? Very hefty. And Keppel was going off in the middle of the hallway. And I was telling someone, it's funny about that. This is really thick concrete. So for that to go off, and I started stomping really hard around it, it said you have to really just stomp and just really forcefully try to get that movement right next to the ball for it to go off. And even stomping as hard as I could, the ball wouldn't go off. My husband looks, he goes, "Oh, you have a word coming up on the Chattergeist." And I look, and it wasn't English. It was German. And it was specifically a Low German word. And it was the Low German word for stomping around heavily.
Now
Yep.
that is strange, right? Because so was this in dictionary mode, or was this in? Do you know which mode
It was
this was in?
in the normal prompting mode where a word would come up. Yeah, so dictionary mode.
That's really
And
interesting.
I was like, "Why It's a German word," because I was like, "Okay, that's a German, but not a German I've recognized." So the QR code scanned it, and it specifically is a Low German word. So it's like backcountry, like older German for
Well,
the
so
act of stomping heavily around.
here's an interesting thing, right? So the way the Chattergeist dictionaries work, and I haven't really spoken about this very much, is there's a set amount of words that have been selected by me and a couple of other people who have been helping me do this. There are, testing my memory, 12,322 words or something like that, maybe.
Just a few.
Yeah, per language, per dictionary. So if you've got the Latin one, it's 12,300 Latin words. And if it's German, it's 12,000 German words. So if it's English, the default, there's no German words. However, on the odd occasion where a scan happens and the fluctuation of the environmental data is within the sensitivity bounds and you get a result, if it's within a very small percentile, this is nothing to do with the actual results itself. It's to do with the selection, the way the device selects words from the dictionary. It will pull a word from the dictionary and it may fragment the word, and it may cut the word at
Yes.
that point. So
I've seen that some words get cut.
yeah, and this is something that originally I was going to fix, and then I was like, oh, actually, I quite like that. I quite like that idea because it feels like an interruption. Given there's an English word and it could be shortened, and maybe that then coincides with a German stomping or word, it doesn't necessarily lessen the impact. If anything, that makes it really more interesting in a way. And that's
Which is
really
what I'll
strange.
say. Yeah, and that's why I never mentioned it to you when it first happened, but it's the story Mike and I tell all the time about just the things that we've had happen with a Chattergeist that nothing else. It blows our mind. We've had, so also at Eloise, the word McCoy came up. All right, the real McCoy, Eli McCoy, died at Eloise. The founder of the saying, the real McCoy. He actually died there.
Really?
He wasn't a mental patient, but he died of an illness. Yep, later. So the very specific things that have come up on
Yeah,
the
that
Chattergeist
is.
in areas without there being a location device in there, without there being a microphone to pick up what you're saying, right? The things you'd be like, oh, it clearly knows where you are. It's hearing what you're saying. So it's programmed to respond to the environment to provide the
Yeah.
it isn't. I'm telling
No,
you, it isn't.
no.
And the number of times that we've opened this up in places and the words coming up are, we were in New Orleans in Congo Square, where all the people would go and they would have their celebrations on Sundays after church because that was the time they were legally allowed to hold their services. The second we turned on the Chattergeist, it said African.
Yeah, see, stuff like that blows my mind. So here's an interesting fact that I'm gonna corroborate a little bit with you here. The best results I've personally had when field testing Chattergeist has been initially when I've turned it on. And I don't understand why that is. The very first time, and I recorded it, and it's on our YouTube channel. It's one of the only videos on our YouTube channel that isn't a tutorial. And the very first time I ever turned a Chattergeist on in a graveyard, I had it on single word mode, and the only word that came up was graveyard. And the chances of that are not just 1 in 12,322 or whatever it is. The chances of that are the sensor poll data has to be within that certain amount to pick the seed that then will then select that word. And I cannot explain that. And so here's another thing. I partake in marijuana. And I'm not saying that anyone listening should do so. However, one of my most memorable field tests with the Chattergeist is right here on my desk is where I developed Chattergeist. I've got a nice little cutting mat on here and a mechanical keyboard. And I had the Chattergeist plugged in, and I was rolling myself a magical cigarette. And as I was doing so, the Chattergeist scan went off, and it said marijuana cigarette, and then a number underneath. And I have the screenshot, like a photo on my phone, because it
You're like,
blew my mind
what
completely.
is going on?
And I've had tons of them like this, and so have other people. And I honestly, as someone who developed the device, I developed the device from start to finish. I can't explain that. I just cannot explain that. There's no way I can explain that. I'd love to be able to, but
Right?
I just
Yeah,
can't.
right. Because it's like, well, here's the magic. And I think the credibility that we've seen, because I'm exceptionally being an engineer, I look at things extremely from a skeptic's point of view. And I really believe that you have to. And one of our local people here in Ohio, she makes a lot of tech as well, Lauren Hellickson. She is Lauren Hans on the internet. She makes the Seer and a couple other like really
Right.
cool devices. So what I love, she says, is how do you know it works if you don't know how it works? Because people don't know how tech works. They don't understand radio frequencies, electromagnetic waves, that your REM pod could go off from a radio miles away, be it a boat, a CV from I was going to say a lorry.
Well, yeah, a lorry. Yeah, a
A
lorry.
lorry.
A good old truck.
Trying to be all European now.
Love it.
Right. But these things can interact. And it's like we get so caught up in the moment, or we have our own bias, or we just so badly want it to be that bump in the night thing that makes us go, oh my gosh, that's contact. This is connection. This is what we're here for. And it's like that the healthy skepticism, the number of times that I've had to scratch my head and go, are you freaking kidding me? We were up with Bloody Mary. It was a voodoo priestess in New Orleans. She has a haunted museum, and the top floor of the haunted museum is actually an apartment where during Katrina, I don't know, it was 20 years ago, so a long time. I didn't even know the story, but it was where the quote unquote Katrina cannibal lived. It was a boyfriend and girlfriend. They had just moved to that apartment. They actually stayed through the hurricane. They didn't evacuate, and they made the news because they were staying through the hurricane because they were like, this is our city. We're not leaving. So the news kind of followed them through their progress of what happened after the hurricane. So they were quite famous just for being on the news for that. They ended up getting in a bad fight one night, and he ended up unaliving her, ended up dismembering her, ending up boiling parts of her, baking other parts of her, and putting the rest of her in a fridge, and then went to work, and after work unalived himself. So he wasn't a
Wait,
cannibal.
wait. He went to.
He went to work. Yeah. And then afterwards left.
That's a different level of crazy, guys.
100%. No, he legit lost his mind. He lost his mind. He clearly, because it was just so tragic. I had no idea about the story. Didn't know we were in the apartment, let alone in the kitchen where this had all happened. And the device started going slice, cut, oil. And I'm like, well, this is so random. Oh, I'm by a kitchen. And when Bloody Mary started telling the story, I'm like looking at the Chattergeist and looking at her, and I'm like, oh no, oh no, oh no. I'm like, what did he do?
I really wish I could explain things like that. I really wish I could. In the more I use the device, and I know there's going to be people out there that say, oh, it's confirmation bias. You're pattern recognizing, you're seeing, you're looking for the words, but it happens to the point where you almost forget about it, and then you turn the device on, and then something will happen. And I don't really know. I mean, I'm just going to end the sentence there. I don't really know.
I don't really know. And that's the magic you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, that's about as far as I can go in terms of trying to explain it. I mean, I can talk forever about how it works, but yeah, in terms of why that happens, I've got no idea. And one of the other things is the canvas mode as well. And we get a lot of, both in our testing and reports from people, we get a lot of like black humanoid shapes, we'll call them that. But they're always black. They're never any other color. They're always black. And the chances of the colors being black are the same as the chances of the colors being red. But they're always black, and they're always humanoid shapes. Yeah, I don't really understand that either. And again, I'm just to go into a little bit of detail, and I'll tell you a little bit about how the canvas mode works. So it's polling. How this works on a very sort of simplistic terms for everyone listening, so no one gets left behind. The device polls ambient temperature around the device, micro EMF fluctuation, and radio frequency noise. And it polls those on a period. And if a period is within a certain fluctuation threshold, then it will then grab that raw data from all three sensors, assign that to a seeded random. That seed will then pick out a color. And let's say the first color it picks out is red. So in the top left of your screen will be a red square. It then moves to the second square, and then it does the same polling frequency again. And when that fluctuation happens, it then selects the seed and then decides whether it's going to be lighter or darker or a different hue. And it then pastes that, moves to the next one. This goes all the way down the screen, and then we run a blur filter over it, which you can adjust. You can focus it, and that's all it does. So for it to generate any shapes at all, it shouldn't generate any shapes. It should generate random, but it doesn't. And again, that's as close as I can get it.
That is a really cool, and I like the context of it, because again, the way I look at it is I never hold one piece of tech or gear as Bible. No, I mean, we don't know what anything is. We don't know what exists, what doesn't exist, the rules for it existing, right? This is all just us. We're literally experimenting. We're literally trying to understand how to contextualize that world. We're trying to understand how to connect with that world through these. So I never go based off of, oh my gosh, this word came up. Clearly, that's what it is. This is proof. I like to look at it as it just provides layers. It like adds a little bit of something to round out other things, either holding other tech accountable, like in the way I was talking, like a REM pod, I'll always have a static meter with it, or something just to try to help. Could that potentially be environmental? It's just trying to understand the situation we're in. And that's one thing I like about this, that there are literally two screens of options on the wheel that you can choose. So many things that you can do with it. So what's your favorite mode?
What's my favorite mode?
Yeah.
Right now, I would say my favorite mode is the new Rorschach mode. And that's not because or the ink blot mode, and that's not because it's a new mode and I'm trying to sell it or anything like that. I like it because of the results I've gotten. So the Rorschach mode is the same as canvas mode, and the way it functions is similar, except for it's just black and white. And it'll do the same thing. It'll start in the top left and then poll the sensors. If it's within the threshold, it'll then pick black or white. And then it'll go to the next one and then pick either a darker shade of white or a lighter shade of black or a new black or white. And it'll do that all the way down. And then it will take half of it and then mirror it. And then you'll be left with the ink blot. And it's been really cool. I mean, we've been out in graveyards and I've got grave shapes, and it's just, and I know some of this is going to be pareidolia, pattern recognition and things like that.
Yes.
But right now it's the one mode that you can go to and sort of just sit there and play with for a little bit and just kind of see whether you can find something. And I'm not saying it's going to be like that when we release it. I may very well get rid of the pareidolia side of things and try and lessen the pattern recognition a little bit. But right now, this is my favorite because it's pretty cool.
I'm gonna say, how did you even come up with some of these, like the canvas mode? I get the natural progression from the obelisk to something very similar. Ouija, okay, that also was kind of a natural step for it. But the canvas mode for me was very interesting, adding in the ability to change your moon phase depending on where you're at to really hone into your location. Where do these come from?
So the initial idea was to just do words and just have the dictionary mode. And in fact, initially, we didn't even have dictionary. We were just selecting letters at random and just pop, 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 pop on the screen.
Okay.
Which one of the modes actually does now. The letter mode does that. However, yeah, the initial idea was just words on the dictionary. And then I noticed the Ovilus. It sounds a lot like I'm stealing from Ovilus, but bear with me here, guys. So I noticed the Ovilus had different modes. And one of those was, I can't remember what they call it. They call it maybe just a drawing mode. I can't remember. But it's set shapes. They have set shapes programmed. And then depending on the fluctuation of their sensors, just puts the shapes in random places on the screen. I think that's how it works generally, and there's patterns involved. And it does it real slow, if I remember right. So every sensor pole is just a bit of the image. So you have to wait a while for it to appear. And I thought, the initial thought was, wouldn't it be cool if it did like some sort of automatic drawing, like automatic writing? So like when clairvoyants close their eyes and then they draw and write random things. I was like, it'd be cool to do something like that. So played around with an idea of generating random colors, and the colors were just a static mess of nonsense, to the point where the chances of getting even like a 6x6 pixel of the same color is just astronomical. It's never ever going to happen. So I started playing around with some algorithms, and none of them worked. All of them just kind of created like a noise, kind of in a way, like a colored noise. So what I actually decided to do was use a base fractal called the Perlin noise fractal, which gives you like sort of cloud shapes as a base, and then flattening that out and increasing the contrast like so heavy, and then removing sections and then working backwards to then replace those as color sections as it goes down. And what that's given us is a sort of like a sea of colors. So colors sort of like flow in and out of each other. I'm not going to pretend like it's amazing or crazy or anything like that. Anyone could code it. But it's taken a long time to get to this point, to get an output that wasn't just garbled junk, but also wasn't specifically anything. We needed to find that really awkward middle ground. In doing so, we're getting some really strange results. And I mean, at that point, the moment we started to get anything that kind of looked like anything, so we would be sat in here messing around with it, and one generation might be like something that might look like a tree. And we're like, that looks a bit like a tree. We'll regenerate it, and we keep regenerating it and keep regenerating it and see if we find anything else. If we don't, we mark that as we didn't. If we did, we mark that as we did. And we went through so many iterations. And we got to the point where it is now so random that you very rarely get things that look like trees. You very rarely get things that look like houses. You very rarely get things that look like anything. And we think that's more fair, I think. But in doing so, we've ended up inadvertently creating these like humanoid shapes, and they don't always appear, and they only seem to appear under certain circumstances. And it seems to be in colder places. So I don't know whether that's something to do with the algorithm being on the low end of the temperature spectrum. I don't know. It's strange.
I love that. It is, but that's the magic. I call it the magic. It's not. It's science, but that's kind of what makes it. You're trying hard to not make it force itself into something where people can immediately recognize and right to remove those like false positives or the confirmation bias that we tend to
Exactly.
have. And I appreciate that because a lot of times like the skeptical mind immediately, especially anything that has like a brain behind it, like the sensors that I'm like, okay, my phone, all the apps on my phone clearly know where I'm at. They clearly have use
Yes.
of the difference, right? Like those, I always go, no, entertainment, but not
We sell Chattergeist as an entertainment device. That is for legalities.
absolutely.
The amount of people who have come to us and say, well, I don't think it's detecting ghosts. It's like, well, we never actually said it's detecting ghosts. Never said that. And I have my own theories on what ghosts are, and we can get into that maybe in a little bit. I think it's very, very important that Chattergeist will never connect to any other device. It will never connect to the internet. It has the ability, and here's the thing, these boards actually have a Wi-Fi chip on them. They could
Wow.
theoretically connect to your Wi-Fi and do all sorts of wonderful things with AI. I could get ChatGPT to interpret some results on the sensors, and that would be amazing. However, it removes any authenticity at all. The moment you say it connects to the internet or it listens via a mic, that's it. Any authenticity is out the window.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, that's a reality of it, right? For as entertaining as all that is, on the other side of it, it's nice to have gear that maybe isn't falling into that AI world. I'm digging also on the AI side of things and just there's some rabbit holes out there. I'm falling in all
Yeah.
of them.
Oh yes, oh yes. There are good things with AI, and I am reticent to call it AI because it's not really intelligent.
It's not this like neuron network of computers sitting there working through things.
Yeah.
And we're a little bit far away from that.
Hopefully, touch wood.
Maybe not.
But yeah, I mean, it has its uses. I wouldn't go as far as to say AI art is good or whether it's art because that's a big debate at the moment. But in terms of like analyzing data is a great example. LLMs and AI, if you want to call them that, are amazing at analyzing data and also giving you a brief overview of things. But in terms of paranormal investigation, I think you're just inviting yourself into a world of false positives, personally.
Absolutely. I fully agree with that. And that's something that the more I've researched it, kind of the more skeptical I've even become. And there's a couple apps out there that now people are using that are so highly AI. Like we have to apply some logic here. And the second it goes into the interwebs and does all the magic and comes back, it's like, is it really necessary?
That's the
It's like, do
biggest
we have to,
question.
is it really necessary? That seems like a big lift for something that you're trying to do in the moment and engage with the space and connect with a space to then have to rely on an artificial intelligence. To me, that just seems a little,
Yeah, I
okay.
mean, here's an interesting thing that you don't really hear many people say, or anyone talk about actually, is you never hear an AI say it doesn't know. You can ask an AI anything, and it will never say, "I'm afraid I don't know that." What it will
They'll
do
just make it up.
yeah, it will create a narrative which seems right at first
Mhm.
glance, and it will try and make it seem right until you call it out on it. If you say, "Look, that doesn't seem right. It seems like you messed with some data here," it will go, "Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't have done that." So why is it doing that? Why is it not capable of saying I don't know? The moment it can say I don't know, and we can verify it can say I don't know correctly 100% of the time, at that point we can start using AI for paranormal investigation. But I still wouldn't trust it.
Facts. Yeah. The number of times that I use, and for, like you said, I use it to sort through large amounts of data. It's great for helping reduce the administrative load to help focus on the creative side of things, which I use it for. But
Yeah,
I don't know
I
if I
mean
trust it beyond that.
no, I mean that's a really famous meme as well, isn't it? That I wanted AI to do my dishes and clean my house. I didn't want it to do my art for me or something like that. It's like
Right.
it's stealing all of our creativity and leaving us with the shit work. Excuse my language.
Right. No, absolutely. That's why we're here. So, with regards to the Chattergeist in the space, what feedback have you gotten from people in the paranormal community about the device?
Almost entirely positive on the positive side of the spectrum anyway. I think what people really like about it is the fact that it does multiple things. At the core of it, People want a device that does more than one thing. Don't get me wrong, a cat ball is great. A cat ball is a great idea as a concept. As the actual device, that's something maybe we can talk about. I think is a little bit iffy. But as a
Not iffy.
concept,
Mercury switches.
it can be, yeah. But like, okay, let's take something even simpler then. A really high quality, low compression, lossless dictaphone recorder, right? Simple. You press a button, you record. Let go, you listen back. And then if you want, you can amplify it and mess around with it and see whether you can hear anything more. Simple, and it's perfect. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love that idea. But in this day and age, we do have the capability to make things do different things. And although the Chattergeist is only polling three different sensors or three different environmental sets of data, it's utilizing the same sets of data in different ways to get different results from different function modes. Sorry, it's a bit of a roundabout way of saying it. And I think predominantly that is what people like. And that is mainly what the feedback we've had. And going back very, very briefly, you mentioned the moon phase mode and how we came up with a moon phase mode. Quickly touch upon that. So one of the things I want with Chattergeist, and this is very much a personal want, and I would hope that anyone who has any interest in the Chattergeist at all also wants their input into the device. And this is one of those things that just came up. We asked, and God knows how long ago it was now, what would you like to see on the Chattergeist? And one of the options someone came up with was moon phase integration. And at the time, I couldn't work out a way of calculating the moon phase without using an external service like I don't know, like some sort of NASA moon
Mm-hmm. Like where they track
observation
the
thing.
actual phases of what you're
Yeah,
at.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. I couldn't figure out a way of doing it. And what we've actually done is code an algorithm that does that. It codes lunar phases and it will be accurate-ish for the next 20 years. So hopefully that will hold it. But we initially said to the guy, oh, it's not going to be possible. We can't really do it. And then like, I think it was 2 months later or something, I got back to him. I was like, hey, dude, guess what's being released? It was such a good idea. And I was like, oh, it'd be great to do that. So now you can select whether you're waxing or waning, gibbous or whatever on here. Yeah, you can tune yourself in. And for how that works, for those interested, each moon phase has a set value. So if you are a waning crescent, if you're in a waning crescent on the south hemisphere, then it will have a set value for that south hemisphere. What did I just say? Waning crescent.
Yeah.
And then it will then append that to the actual seed, which then selects the word or picks the color or selects the phonetics. So therefore, anything you select will then affect all of the results across the entire Chattergeist. And then if you clear it, it will then go back to the way it functioned before. And I think that's quite a nice compromise to have. It's not perfect by any means because of the use of having to use the moon phase tool. It'd be lovely to put it all on the device, but it's a lot of calculations, and I don't think the Chattergeist could handle it. Maybe one day when I'm feeling really adventurous.
Right. I have to say, I really appreciate the fact that it again adds another layer to the data you're collecting. It's very much like, does moon phases have an impact on some of these things? And you don't know until you track it.
Yeah,
So it's kind
exactly.
of convenient that you have that ability now to take that into consideration, really figure out, is this any impact on what we're experiencing?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would like at some point to make Chattergeist do things outside of the paranormal. Not by default. It'll always be an ITC device primarily, but it would be nice to be able to have another different firmware that you could load on that did something completely different. And I think a couple of those ideas are kind of akin to moon phases and linking in with different realities and things like that. And one of the things Chattergeist has on it at the moment is the universe number. Do you know about this?
All right. Yes, I saw it pop up recently in the last update I did when I got the second Chattergeist. And I was like, what is this universe number? So explain to me the concept of the universe number.
Allow me to just quickly bring up the page so I don't butcher it. This has taken a long time. So initially, the idea was to have something. There was a subreddit on Reddit.com that was called something like dimensional jumping or something along those lines. And the theory was, this was many moons ago, like 2012, 2014 kind of time. the idea behind it was they had a header at the top and it had a number on it, and I cannot remember the number now, in a couple of colors. It was like 921, and then the colors were like green and blue lines or something. And the theory being anyone could visit there, and if at any point it wasn't 921 and the colors weren't greeny blue or whatever, then you've jumped universes and it could be really, really crazy. And I've always loved that idea. As the sci-fi buff in me really loves that idea.
Right.
So I wanted to put something like that in Chattergeist, but something that was more scientifically sound, as stupid as that sounds.
No.
What we did initially was I just picked a number at random, which is 22203, and we put that on the Chattergeist, and it stayed on the Chattergeist as a separate file. And if that ever changed, then maybe you jump realities. And then I realized there's a huge problem with that, especially with quantum physics, with the observer effect. And that is, if a conscious observer notices something, then that wave has collapsed and it's permanent. I'm a conscious observer, and for that reason, that number would never change. So what I've ended up doing is this crazy in-depth calculation, and I'm going to run you through it real quick. I've picked two large prime numbers. One of them is the Mersenne prime, and one of them is just a random prime number. I've picked the Planck constant, the speed of light, the gravitational constant, and two arbitrary reference points. Did this
Love
massive
this.
it gets very. I can't talk this through because people would just turn off.
They're like, wait,
But what
what's
I'm
going
doing,
on, math?
I don't know what's wrong with people. Number theory specifically, I love. But yeah, so I take the Mersenne prime, to the power of the Planck constant, and then I take the other large prime, and I do that to the power of the speed of light. I then do another calculation underneath that takes the gravitational constant into effect. And then I then scale that up and down using the arbitrary reference points. And then that then equals 22203. So what we ended up with is a calculation that's on the device. It's on the firmware, permanently on the device. And even though I'm a conscious observer and I have done this calculation, the Planck constant and the speed of light, as far as we know, we didn't create. I mean, humans didn't create. Well, maybe we did. That's another discussion. But if we didn't, then they are standard. And if anything changes within a 0.12 decimal point change, so even if it's a very, very, very minute change, then the number on the device will not be 22203. It will be a different number. And in which case, something fundamental has changed in our physics and our reality. And that should never happen. So as long as your device says 2220,
then it's good. We're all good. And when I saw that pop up, I was like, okay, that's actually really cool. But then I didn't know if it was specific to my device or if it was like, no, this is the number that we're reading across and it isn't unique to all these different devices. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, originally when we first released it, it was unique to each individual device. But we figured it makes more sense for everyone to share a number. So if someone notices it, then they can check theirs. Just see whether it's just an anomaly.
And that way it's more of a control. It's like, great population.
Exactly.
So speaking of all these great things that you've come up with, and I mean, you went from the device to the wrist pack to now this 2.4 gigahertz sensor and then a camera. Talk me through some of the
I'd forgotten
current
about all
things
that.
you're in development. Just all the things that are currently of taking all your time. But
God.
what else do you see kind of on the, like, what's your grand plan for the future in addition to just small ask what's going on today and how do you see what are the other fun things you're looking at adding to it?
So right now what we have in development is this, which is the 24 gigahertz radar, and this is near the end of development. It's going to be released super soon. This does up to 6 meters through walls to a certain extent, depending on what your wall is made of. But we've managed to put it up against our neighbor's wall, which is over here, and we can detect when they walk into their kitchen, which we haven't told them.
Goodness.
But that's pretty crazy.
Super secret. I will not
They
send
don't
them
need
this
to know.
podcast.
It's not like I'm broadcasting it to the world. So yeah, that's one thing we got, and it detects human presence. Which what it's actually doing is it's beaming microwaves out. They go out at a wide angle. If the microwaves reflect off of anything, that's what it's measuring, and it can detect how far away things are. It can also detect whether things are coming closer or further away.
That's really. Is it unidirectional? Is it like you have to face it in a particular direction?
I think it's testing my memory. I think it's 110 degrees arc horizontally and 90 degrees vertically. So it's quite a wide arc it goes out to. And what it reflects off of, it reflects off of metals. We've got a nice little table that we're adding to the manual so you can see how best to utilize it.
Okay, good.
But water is what it's reflecting in humans. So it doesn't actually see the skin. It doesn't see your bones. What it sees is the water inside your body, and it's reflecting that, which is pretty cool.
Very interesting. That's actually really cool.
Very, very.
I
I've
love
not
that.
seen one on the market yet, and I don't know whether they exist.
No. When you first did that, I thought it was very interesting because the only thing I have seen in Grimstone, which is the paranormal team we are a part of back in Michigan, we did residential investigations for people. It was a true research and
Oh, cool.
investigation team. So Chris, who was the founder, he unfortunately passed last year. He had a radar that we would put in a room and we could see if things were changing when we weren't in there to see if things were moving. And I saw one episode like 100 years ago of Ghost Hunters where Steve Gonzalez had a radar that they were using that was to determine, and they felt they caught something getting close to them using that. The only two times I've ever seen a radar used in a way. And I've always been like, that's actually really kind of genius. Why don't we have more of that? And I'm like, well, also, right, that's more gear. It's another thing to lug around,
That's true.
understanding how
Yeah,
to
that's true.
use it, right? So when you first put the announcement out there online, and I was like, wait, hold up, what? And I'm like, genius, because again, this Chattergeist is the size of a smartwatch face. Like it really is compact. And the fact that you're providing so much value and an option in something that is like super usable, it's a reason why we use it so much because it's so usable. It's so easy to use and have, and we don't have to lug a whole thing around, throw it in
Make
my
me
purse.
cry.
It's everywhere. That's what I'm trying to do. I made Barry cry.
No, it's really, really
So
lovely. I do appreciate those
seriously,
kind
I mean,
words.
we are the biggest fans of Chattergeist. And I do have to share. I have it? It's somewhere. So had just ordered a second one. So my husband had one and I had one. So I could, I'd wear the wrist pack and my husband would have it normally on the battery pack. And literally it was my second time using this. And I emailed Barry afterwards and he was like, what? Are you kidding me? I'm like, it's being an engineer. I know exactly what happened. Stupid me put the wristband on the wrong wrist, meaning the one I never wear it on. And I had a friend hold it for me while I tied it. And I thought I had done it properly. And
It through the
clearly, because
loop.
it didn't go properly. And I literally, as soon as he let go of my wrist and I turned my wrist, it just
It
fell
just
off
came off.
the whole unit, and
No.
it hit on the perfect angle. It was literally the only time it would have ever have happened. If it had landed any other way, it would have been fine. It was just how it landed and the way it popped out. And I was just like, oh, oops. Being an engineer, I know there's one critical point.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
found it in that one instance. And it's not a thing that's going to happen. People don't worry. It's literally for me. And it was a hard tile floor. It was just, I was
You know
tired, not thinking.
what, Jennifer Lynn? We originally were going to do Velcro straps. Maybe we should have just for you.
That's like, how long have I been in Velcro shoes before I could tie a lace, right?
It's okay. I don't
But it's
judge.
not that hard. It's because I put it on the wrong wrist. And the second I did that, I was like, oh, it doesn't feel right. I'm not used to having, right? I'm very
Yeah.
used to it being over here. And I should have just taken the 3 seconds to say, no, I'm going to put it on the proper wrist.
Well, live and learn, live and learn. People always check your watches, especially ones that are worth thousands. Like that's why I've never bought an expensive watch because I know I'd
And
scratch it. I know I'd break it.
that's why I was like, oh my goodness, what are the odds that this is going to happen to me? I'm like, no, with my luck, I'm the one. So I took the hit for everyone else. You're welcome.
Well, yeah. I
So
mean, to
no one
be
else will
fair,
have the issue.
in terms of stats of how many people have broke their Chattergeists, three, and that's including you. I mean, that's pretty good. You're in the elite club.
I am in the elite club. Honestly, for as much as I use it though, the robustness of walking around every place we've been, just it's very robust to be very honest with you. So
Yeah, I mean, the first batch we had of Chattergeist had a really screen where you could actually push the screen completely out just with your finger. It
oh,
was really bad. So yeah, we ended up going back and getting those
oh
stern words.
yeah, I would have very stern words
Yeah, I mean,
like
if
nar.
look Look at this poor one.
Wow.
See that
It's
huge
seen
hole?
some use. See that? Yes.
Yeah, the huge hole that happened when I can't remember exactly how I did it now. This Chattergeist is the first one. This is the first one that was ever made, so it's done pretty well. It's now 2 years old, give or take.
Yeah. That's very impressive.
I genuinely can't remember how I'd done that now. I think I caught it on something and then I just pulled it off or something and it just snapped. I'm an idiot. Little thing.
No, it's because we're humans.
Yes, well,
So
and
what
we're
do
all
you
idiotic.
feel?
Sorry.
No, no. So what do you think is going to be like the next thing on the horizon? Like I know about the radar and then of course the thermal cam, which okay, not to get too nerdy, but I have to like what is that attachment going to be like? An attachment or how is that
Thermal
going to
cam.
work? Yes.
So the thermal cam right now looks like, do I have it here on my desk? You might get lucky and I might have it here on my desk. Here it
Okay,
is.
we're getting a sneak peek.
Sneak peek, guys.
Sneak peek.
Don't get too excited. That's it.
I love a
So
good PCB cord.
this is completely held together by blue tack
Oh, love
and a little
that.
bit of solder, a little bit of blue tack there on the back as well. So the way this works is exactly the same as the radar. You plug it into the Chattergeist. You select the thermal cam mode. You then open the extension mode, sorry. And then it opens up the thermal cam preview where you can then select color themes and you can also select the interpolation between pixels so you can smooth the image out or make it more sharp.
More discreet. Okay. Oh, wow.
So the way this works is this is an 8x8 thermal cam that can detect, I believe, also 6 meters away. It might be 7 meters away. But that's on the high end of the spectrum. You'd have to have quite a high heat, 7 meters away. But it's got 8x8 grid. So you get 64 heat sensors, basically, is what you're talking about. And then that's displayed as a color grid. And whether we have this on the back of the device like this, so you can then hold it up and look around, I'm not too sure. The other option is to have it like the radar, so it hangs either off the side of the wrist pack and or off the side of a table or something like that. I kind of like the idea of having it held up, so you're like looking at it and it shows you whatever you're looking at in thermal vision. That's quite cool. But it would
I
mean that
actually
it
like
wouldn't
that.
be able to be used on the wrist pack. So it's kind of a trade up at the moment about what we're going to do. Not sure.
What I love is, well, I love for me, I have a wrist pack and a non-wrist pack version. So whatever you release, I can use.
I love it. It's something that I really wish the radar sensor was a little bit smaller and thinner. You can get smaller, thinner sensor parts, but they would obstruct ports on the Chattergeist, which kind of negates the whole point of it. So the only thing we could come up with really was this little awkward corner shape, which is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you plug it in like that, there you go. That's it without the wrist pack. So you can sit it on something and it would overhang like that, so it could just point forward. And to be honest, the radar sensor should, although it is made for the wrist pack and it does work on the wrist pack, it really should be stationary. A radar sensors really should be stationary because anything reflecting that moves will give you a result. And if
Yeah,
you're
result, right?
moving in this, the sensor doesn't know that it's moving. It thinks the world's moving, and
Yeah.
therefore it will start giving you positives. So it is quite good to keep this as still as possible. That's something just to keep in mind. But during our testing, I mean, we've had through 2 gravestones movement detected up to, I think it was about 3.25 meters away, which was me.
Wow.
It wasn't a ghost. It was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
me hiding behind a gravestone testing it. But it's great that that works because that means that anything that has any sort of water content in any way, shape, or form should be reflected to a certain extent. And this plays into a little bit about Dr. Masaru Emoto's water theory. And I don't know whether you know
Mhm.
about that at all.
No, I don't.
If you're into esoteric, wonderful things. So you asked about the future of Chattergeist, and this plays in perfectly because this is where I plan to go. Chattergeist has temperature, micro EMF, and radio frequency environmental data. However, I have a love for the idea that water holds memory. Not quite in the way that people tend to think, like you say to water, hello, and then it will remember as you say hello. Or some people even think you look at water and it somehow your imprint is on the water on a molecular level. I think it's based on intent. I think intent, the experiment that, bear with me here, guys. The experiment that Dr. Masaru Emoto did was called the rice experiment, the boiled rice experiment. And he took a big pot, boiled some rice. He then took 3 jars and poured some rice in each jar. And on the first jar, he put a label that says hate, middle jar, a label that said nothing, and the other jar, a label that said love. And then each morning, he sealed the jars, hermetically sealed, no air, except for the air that was already in there. And then each morning, he'd go up to the hate jar. And
It's fine, yeah.
so he goes up to the hate jar and he calls it a fucking bastard. And he says, "You're the worst fucking rice I've ever heard." And he goes
Just
to
fills it with hate.
yeah, well, it's more about directing the intent. You have to actually believe it. He had to actually believe the rice was awful. And then he goes to the neutral one, just looks at it and walks away. And he goes to the love one and he says, "I love you. I can't wait to eat you. I bet you're really tasty. I can't wait. I bet you're juicy, nice, sticky rice." And he does this for a little bit. And what he found almost every time, and you can repeat this at home, you can do this experiment, which is what blows my mind, is the hate rice will be much more moldy than the neutral rice, which will be more moldy than the love rice, which will hopefully have no mold after a month. And that,
Wow.
my theory and Dr. Emoto's theory kind of intertwine here in that the intent is being encoded in the water that is within the rice. And this goes some way to giving some credence to the reason why priests bless water. Perhaps at some point, if you really do believe it, that water can be infused with positivity. Perhaps. So my theory on what ghosts are, to bring this all the way back round, is I believe ghosts could be echoes of time, either in the future or the past, that are held as intent and emotion in water. And this is why old buildings may have more hauntings, because they have older water within the mortar that just hasn't evaporated. It's been there forever. And so tying this back into the future of Chattergeist, one of the things I really, really want to make is called the probe. And that is something that plugs into the Chattergeist and it has 2 little prongs on it. And you can put this against something that is slightly moist or wet, and it will then analyze the conductivity, probably through some form of algorithm that I haven't yet thought of, which will then give you a base reading. And that way it will calibrate your device to a specific object or place. So you could go into a haunted house, find a damp stone on the wall on the outside or the inside, put your device against it, click calibrate. It would calibrate the device to that location. And now all results on that device will be calibrated to that location. And then you can just clear it and then you can go somewhere else and calibrate it to a different location. And I really love the idea of it. So that's something that may happen.
I think that is fascinating. And that's why I'm so happy that we made the time to have this happen today, because these are the things that, we don't really talk about a lot, right? We're so busy just out there with the product, and to think about, there's a whole person behind this. There's a whole reason you created this. And I think it's actually exciting to see where you're going with this and the theory behind it. Like I said, I really am not sponsored. People adore this. My husband and I have three technically.
2.5.
2.5. Yeah.
So it's something I will very, very quickly say is I love explaining Chattergeist to people, because people don't often ask questions. You get the skeptics that come along and then they ask the most mundane and boring of questions, but you never actually get anyone that actually on the street or out in the field that asks these deep questions. So being able to answer this on a podcast, and even if, only a portion of Chattergeist owners watch this or whatever, the information's out there. You can find the information if you look for it. And I think that's really, really important.
Oh, this has been such a pleasure. It's been so nice getting
Yeah,
out
I've
of the
enjoyed.
emails and actually being able to talk with you.
Yeah, putting a face
Um,
and a voice to a person always goes a
Absolutely.
long way.
It definitely does. So, you definitely have a huge supporter here with Para is My Normal.
We
Thank
love
you
you
so
guys.
much. No, seriously. So, for all of the people listening, I definitely will have all the information in the show notes, links to everything, information on everything, people, contacts, all that. So, if you're on the fence and you're wondering about this Chattergeist, honestly, again, not paid endorsement. I'm telling you, this honestly would be something I would say, if your money is precious, this is a device that you cannot go wrong with having it in your pocket, just to have that other layer of information out there. Another way to experience the space.
I would say if you're on the fence about it, I would say this to you. I would say keep your money and do something nice, maybe with your partner instead, or your mum, or your dad, or buy your dog
Right.
something. You don't need to buy a Chattergeist. But what I will say is if you're on the fence about it and you're genuinely interested in buying a Chattergeist, drop me an email and have a chat with me. Or just add
Yes.
me on any social media and we'll just have a chat. And if you're not interested, cool. Maybe we can still be friends. Maybe not, but maybe we can.
There's that incentive.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, what I'm trying to say is completely open book. If you have any questions about Chat Guys, give us a bell, and we'll answer. What?
And I can attest to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Through many emails backwards and forwards, we're still
Many.
here.
Sharing of evidence and asking questions. And
Yeah, love
honestly,
it.
the transparency of your company is another thing that's just unheard of. Honestly, being able to actually reach out and speak to the developer and be like, hey, what's going on?
Something.
You
So
know?
yeah. So we know individuals who make equipment do exactly the same thing. They take messages on Facebook and stuff. What's been super important to me is ensuring, and this is a holdover from my professional days, is ensuring a high level of customer service, which sounds a bit pridey and a bit sort of egotistical maybe. But for me, that is above anything. When it comes to providing a product, if I bought a Chattergeist, let's say that I was a customer and someone else developed it. Now I bought a Chattergeist and I spent £135 of my money on a Chattergeist. And it came to me and there was a problem with it. Where it still worked, let's just say it still worked, but there was a little wiggliness on the USB key, on the USB plug or something silly, something that I knew would fail at some point. And I got back to the person and I said, look, this is a bit sketchy. Is it possible I can get a replacement or you could sort it out? And they either ignored me or refused a replacement. I would be gutted. And I'm not a skinflint. I'm not like, I don't save money. I'm terrible with money. But like, if that happened, I would be absolutely gutted. I'd be like, oh man, I put all my like sort of faith in this product. I did my research. I wanted to make sure it was okay, blah, 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 blah. And it turns out the people running it are just awful people. I can't ethically do that. And even if to the point where it gets to the point, and I'm not saying I give everyone a replacement device and I'm giving people free devices left, right, and center. I'm not doing that at all. But if it ever got to the point where it was a Chattergeist replacement or the company goes under, if it was on that cusp of that last one, I would give the replacement because it sucks. Anyone who says they wouldn't is an awful person. I'm sorry.
No,
I think you
I agree.
have to be, yeah, I mean, you have to be giving. You just have to be. And I'm like, I don't believe in any religion. And I believe that if everyone was honest with themselves, everyone would be agnostic because no one knows if whether there's a God or not. But that doesn't mean you have to be an asshole.
Exactly. The tenet of just being a decent person. How about let's try that on for a while? What does that look
Yeah.
like? What
Yeah.
does it look like to be just a decent person in the world?
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully people have been using hashtag #paraunity, which has been, useful, I guess. But I've seen the wrong people using it, and therein lies a problem. When those people are part of the problem and they're using it to their own means to make themselves look good, there's a problem. But
Definitely.
touch wood, 99.8% of everything of people and companies and everyone we've interacted with have been awesome. Absolutely
That's
lovely.
good.
It's amazing. It's because coming in from a completely different industry to this one, it's not what you'd expect at all. I see a lot of infighting, a lot of horrid people, and a lot of like, I don't know. I guess it's the same with anything unknown. You're always going to get, debunkers, and you're always going to get angry people in the same way that you get atheists and, religious people. You're always going to get that
Yeah.
conflict. And so I think it's to be expected, but we've been pretty lucky overall. I'm not blind to that, and I like it. It's nice.
No, and I think that speaks a lot to just who you are as a person and how you handle your business. I mean, you mentioned the intent of things, right? Your intent is definitely to not go out there and just be like, quick dollar, let's turn it over and then hide in the middle of the night, right? It's that would not fly. Like people talk
Yeah,
and
exactly.
right, that's how business grows. So it definitely shows that you're in it for the right reasons. So when is the next one coming out then?
Well, so here's the thing. So the next one should be coming out within this week. For those who are listening in the past, that is Sunday the 27th of April. This patch would have been released, hopefully. So in the next pack, though, just very, very quickly, what we've added is mental. So every dictionary now will have 3 dictionaries attached. So when you download the English dictionary, you're actually downloading the English, the 19th century, and the Latin dictionary in one. And they will all...
So cool.
Yeah, they will all be on your device all at the same time, which is great. And that happens no matter the language. So if you download the German one, you'll also get the 19th century and Latin ones in the German, which is really cool. We got the DIY sensors. We've got the thermal mode being added. The 24 gigahertz radar will be there. Full radar history of up to 250 entries will be there as well. So you can actually view the radar back a little while. The Rorschach mode is support for the holograph, which we've not even touched upon, but we don't need to because it's something for people to look up. Support for the holograph prisms, so you can make your screen look like a holograph. The new universes, new scanning icon, new planchette mode tweaks, new emojis that are little ghosts instead of faces, tweak the moon phase to make it more accurate, new notification colors, new touch sensitivity, an entirely new options menu that looks the same but functions much better. We have been busy, and hopefully come Saturday or Sunday, we'll get that out. And I'm dying to get it out.
Goodness. I'm dying for you too, but no pressure because you got a lot going on there. Thank you so much for your time. We
Thank
really
you for having
appreciate
me.
you, and I will post all the information on how to get a hold of you and order their own Chattergeist.
I will do, and you have a lovely rest of your evening. And before I go, we'll reschedule another one, and we'll have a proper little conspiracy chat, because that's a whole other ballpark that we can definitely dip our toes into.
I file that one under spirits with spirits.
Oh yes, definitely.
Spirit, while we're talking about the conspiracy,
that's not a bad idea.
I'm all about it. Yeah. We're gonna do that.
Definitely, I'm all in on that. I'm all in on that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, and we will definitely talk to you later.